What a load of bull honky. Ferdinand is just the latest animated film from Blue Sky. Those are the same people that made Ice Age, so when I think of this company, I don't really think of fantastic animated films, but sometimes they can get a good movie in here and there. Do I think Ferdinand is a good movie? I think it's decent, it's fine, it's just not anything fantastic, nor do I think you're going to remember it in the long run. It's about a bunch of bulls, and in one in particular named Ferdinand, who, along with all his other bull buddies, are basically being bred to eventually fight in a bullfighting championship. Ferdinand, however, doesn't want to fight. He just wants to live his life and not be violent. I don't know how I really feel about this movie in general, but I do know what I rated it, so let's get into it. First up, we look at the people category, which goes over the acting, characters, casting, importance, and chemistry, only 2 of which get perfect points. Those were the characters and the chemistry. Yes, this is filled with a number of characters that you will remember pretty well, especially when it comes down to these animals all being distinct from one another. It's hard to make animals distinct in films. I couldn't distinguish between the animals in, say, The Secret Life of Pets. They were all basically typical. And Ferdinand, I can say that all the different colors and all the different bone structures and the way that these animals are not only drawn, but how they act and how they have their personality are all very distinct from one another. So that gets perfect points. The chemistry, a big part of the movie is the chemistry between the bull and the girl towards the beginning of the movie, but also the bull and how the other bulls perceive him and how he responds to how they act is all part of the chemistry. So that gets perfect points. Everything else gets half points. The acting is fine, nothing super special about it. The casting is also fine, but I think anybody could have been cast in the role, so that gets half points. And as far as the importance goes, I'm a little disappointed in the fact that all the bulls didn't have their own strengths in adding to the plot. They had their own strengths in being diverse, different characters that you will probably remember, but in adding to what's going on in the movie, they all basically blend together. They all want to fight in the ring, and they're just either funny about it or serious about it. So that gets half points. All in all, the people category gets 7 out of 10 possible stars. Next up is the writing category, which goes over the dialogue, the balance of the film, the depth of the story, originality, and how interesting it is, all of which gets perfect points, except for the dialogue and how interesting it is. Nothing about the dialogue really stands out. Interesting, yes, I guess there's some interesting facts about it that I wanted to see. Watching it, it was just fine. Nothing really stood out to me as far as being constantly interesting. It was all basically the same thing, so that gets half points. Everything else gets perfect points. The balance of the film is pretty typical. It all has to do with Ferdinand not wanting to fight. The depth of the story, of course, fighting for what you believe in, fighting to stand up to the status quo. So I do believe that the story depth is pretty good. I consider it, for the most part, original, so those all get full points. The writing category gets 8 out of 10 possible stars. Next up, we look at the BTS category, which goes over the visuals, directing, editing, advertisement, and the music, only 2 of which gets perfect points, and those are the visuals and the advertisement. Obviously, it was as advertised, no false advertising there. And the visuals, of course, this is a CGI, family-oriented film, so a big, important part of the movie was the actual visuals, and the visuals were good enough for me to say full points. Everything else gets half points. Nothing about the directing seemed challenging. Anybody could have done it. Nothing about the editing seemed challenging. Anybody could have done it. And as far as the music and sound, it was fine. It was typical, but nothing stood out, and I don't care to listen to a soundtrack. The BTS category gets 7 out of 10 possible stars. Next up, we're looking at the narrative arc category, which goes over the introduction, inciting incident, obstacles, climax, and falling action, all of which gets perfect points. The introduction gets you acquainted with all the characters. The inciting incident, it was when the bull gets captured as an adult and put back into captivity. The obstacles comes down to trying to figure a way out. It's Prison Break for bulls. The climax, of course, is a pretty big culmination that feels stronger than anything else in the movie. And the falling action calms down and returns to a new norm, just like it should. 10 out of 10 possible stars. Next up, we're looking at the entertainment category, which goes over how rewatchable it is, how much of a fun experience you have while watching, have any impulse to buy it, impulse to talk about it, and if it sucks to the audience in. Rewatchable, fun experience, and sucking the audience in all get half points because rewatchable, yes, I guess if my kid wants to watch it, or if I run into it, I might watch it again on TV or something. I won't go looking for it though. Fun experience, some of it yes, some of it no. A lot of the movie can easily just bring you out of it. So those all get half points. Everything else gets 0. I have no impulse to buy it. I have no impulse to talk about it. Entertainment category gets 3 out of 10. Next up, we're looking at the specialty category, which goes over the 5 things that I wanted to know before I saw the film. And that is, first of all, as a comedy, how funny is it? Maybe some kid humor, some fart humor, some physical humor, but at the same time, even my own kid went into his own room to take a nap while watching this movie. So that gets half points. As an adventure movie, I do believe that there is enough of an adventure to consider this to have full points. 10 out of 10 possible stars there. As a family-oriented film, does it have a good message to tell? Like I said, with the depth of the story, it does. 10 out of 10 possible stars for family. Fantasy? This is listed on IMDb as all these genres, so fantasy was on there. No. This is not a fantasy. Personification of a bull talking isn't fantasy, as the humans don't hear them. That gets 0 out of 10. Halfway decent. I think for the most part they made the movie that they intended to make. That deserves credit, so I will give that 10 out of 10 possible stars. If we add up all those points, we get 70 out of 100 possible stars. 70%. Guys, tell me what you thought of Ferdinand in the comments down below. And as for YouTube, you could subscribe to me, hit that like button, and hit that bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. But until then, guys, peace out.